Welcome back to DS Trucks. In today's video, we are going to be wiring our Ford Upfitter switches. We have a few videos on the channel already about the Ford Upfitter switches, but what we don't have is a in-depth wiring of the switches, actually tying in power and ground and powering a device with the switches. So if you don't already know, basically what the Ford Upfitter switches are is a low voltage circuit already pre-wired through the firewall, allowing you to control a higher voltage circuit outside of the truck from the engine bay to any type of thing that you want to power, lights, some type of upfitting, some type of a 12 volt device that you would want to control outside of the vehicle. Now, in our case, we are going to be wiring a vibrator. Here is the switches inside of the truck. I'm sure you've seen these before if you sat in a late model Ford truck. We're going to be powering the vibrator for this salt spreader as an auxiliary control to power the vibrator circuit so that that alone can just run. We've added a vibrator to this circuit, so now that this salt dog has a dual vibrator. And when you look inside, you can see that there's actually two in here. One was added after the fact, and it's just a little bit too much for the circuit. We ended up popping a few fuses on the controller, so we're going to make it so you can just run it off of an upfitter switch, which is fused for 40 amps instead of the 30 amps that we are fused for through the controller. So let's jump right into this. How do you access the upfitter switches? So there's two ways to get to the bundle for the upfitter switches. The control is through this box right here. This is a 23. Similar location on the 20 through the 22s. And on some models, it's on the other side. If you're going back to like 17 or 19, they're gonna potentially be on that side of the truck over there somewhere. But on the 20 through 22, it's going to be over here. The 23 to 24s are going to be over here as well. Now, the two ways that you access this, you need to actually remove this box. There's some tabs down there that you can lift up to remove the box, but there's some wiring involved and some things involved that will prevent you from lifting this box completely out without removing some other items. There's two things you can do though. The battery and battery tray can come out of the vehicle and give you enough room to access the upfitter switches from the top of the engine. So that's one way. Or you could also remove the fender liner on this side of the truck, and you would be able to reach your hand up in there and you'd see the bundles hanging down. It's all about preference. The work involved is similar. If you're gonna go ahead and take the fender liner out or take the battery tray out, it's just preference. Do you wanna be standing up and working, or do you wanna be sitting down and working on the fender liner? For me personally, doing it both ways, I kind of prefer to work up top with the battery tray out. This is my personal preference. I know guys that do this and they prefer to do the fender liner. In my case also with the 450, the fender liner is harder to take out because it has this fender flare on it, which means you either fight with it or you take the fender flare off. And that's kind of really the tipping point for me when it comes to accessing the upfitter switches. Is with the fender liner on the 450, it just makes more sense for me, in my case, to use the battery tray. So 450s, maybe just go for the battery tray, but still preference. I know guys that prefer to take everything apart on the fender liner, even though they have to deal with the the fender flare, they still prefer the fender liner way. So I think I'll go ahead and take this out. I don't remember if I kind of set myself up to be able to get the upfitter switch bundle without removing anything, but I think I still need to remove the battery tray. So let's, I guess, do that. All right, so as we get ready to pull this battery out of the truck, let's just take a second to look at how clean some of the work is over here at DS Trucks. So this is our snowplow hookup. I can assure you that this is going to be some of the cleanest snowplow install work that you can get. You can see our 12 volt. I went through the trouble of just making my own wiring just to the custom length that I need. Instead of having, you know, the factory wire, I got the press and everything to press out this wire. And we went with a marine grade, same gauge and everything as factory, just way shorter. And when you're dealing with these 12 volt circuits that are carrying a lot of load, being 12 volts is a very safe circuit. Like I could take my hand and touch both of these and absolutely nothing will happen. I can't lick them with my tongue or nothing because that would be conductive enough, but like my hands, it's not enough voltage push to actually push the current through my body just by using my fingers without some kind of extra, you know, if I put salt water on my fingers or something, maybe it could, but just with my skin, not enough to push through. But with that lower voltage, everything comes into account. The thickness of the gauge of the wire that you use needs to be heavy enough to protect or to provide for the fact that you're trying to move something heavy with just 12 volts. Well, you need heavy gauge wiring. You need the proper gauge wiring or heavy gauge wiring in order to move that amount of power. And that's the caveat, that's the downside to such a safe product, is in order to use such a safe amount of power, you've got to have thicker wiring to carry that power. So the length of the wire is important on the 12 volt system. 12 volt systems can't carry current far. And if the wire is too thin, it causes a issue where it can actually short out and burn that wire. So making it shorter, making a circuit shorter, and then making a circuit or making out circuits that have the proper size wire, that have clean connections, is very important on a 12 volt system in order to get the performance that you want out of like a snowplow. This thing lifts 1,000 pounds of weight off the ground with an electric over hydraulic motor. Our connections, being that, you know, how we do things over at DS Trucks, you can see that we've added eyelets and actually went through and did very clean, secure, good connections on everything that we do. And we have videos out on all this stuff that we've done and how to add these type of eyelets and all that stuff that you would want to do. Now, in taking off our battery, we're gonna have to go ahead and remove our beautiful snowplow wiring. From the truck. Now our snowplow's dead. We can go ahead and take this off. I don't want to lose that washer. There's a small little metal washer on top of that. Take that off. So this truck is equipped with dual batteries, and if I were to do things correctly, meaning in order to preserve the memory inside of the truck, I don't want to take off the other battery because then I lose all the memory. The truck doesn't, these new trucks don't like doing that. So I'm going to actually just unhook one battery, keep all the memory inside of the truck, never have the truck go completely dead, but there's something to consider when doing that. If I take this positive wire off and I allow this positive wire to hit the engine, it's gonna arc out and it's gonna burn something up. It's gonna short to ground with heavy gauge wiring and cause damage, potentially a fire. We don't need that. So what I'm gonna do is actually cover this up so I don't have to unhook the other battery, which is, you know, if you feel uncomfortable, I guess unhook the other battery. But I'm gonna cover this up real good so it don't happen, so it don't short to ground or arc. Pause it. All right, so all I do to protect this from shorting to ground is I take a rubber insulated work glove and I cover this up completely so that it cannot short circuit on anything under the engine and I don't have to completely unhook my battery, because then that would be annoying. But now that I've gotten a good thick, you know, work glove over it, this could touch the engine and it's not gonna do nothing. Make sure don't use a work glove that's thin or has holes or is salty. Nothing like that. Just, this is a premium rubber work glove. So this is disconnected. This shouldn't arc. Nope, because it's disconnected. It's no longer connected to the battery. We'll move this over here for now. And our negative is gonna have to come off as well, because we are removing the battery. Now with the negative, I got a friend that don't know how to say negative from like down south. And he said it like way too fast and he got in a lot of trouble. Uh-oh. And he's been trying to explain himself. So this here is my ground for my plow. Ground straps on the vehicle are not as critical because the whole engine, chassis, frame, everything's grounded. You just don't want the hot positive to connect to the engine bay or any metal exposed circuitry. Okay, this all has to be kept sort of together. This isn't even supposed to come off, I don't think. Okay. All this push pin stuff's gonna probably come off. And now that we've gotten everything off to this point, it's time to pull our battery strap. So with these, I think it helps. This one's already missing. Why is that? I'm not sure. Did I take that off yet? Must have. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. All right. So yeah, we'll take this off. And now, I mean, how long did that take? A few minutes, and we pretty much, with talking, we've pretty much been able to access our battery removal. So in taking the battery out, keep in mind how heavy they are. It helps to have a small stool to be able to pick this up, and then your back, you don't want to break your back doing this. If you got disc problems,
game over.
Game over. I don't know what to tell you. I shouldn't be laughing. I got disc problems. But I don't know what to tell myself about that. So it's all about trying to get this heavy son of a gun up. Maybe it'd be better if I didn't have the stool more straight with the back. Okay, what I'll do is I'll see if this thing will slide off. Because I can't even finger it because that thing is taking up any space. Oh, there she goes. Now these are the new AGM batteries. Don't know how I feel about it just yet. I don't know what was wrong with the lead acid ones. But for some reason we had to switch them. Now I'll try and use the stool. Maybe I need it, maybe not. I feel like I need it. Ooh. Oh, get it to here, set it there. Oh, and get it out. 12-volt battery. All right, now that we're at this point, we need to remove our battery tray to get the most access to our upfitter switches. I believe those are going to be a 13 milli. All right, so I got my Milwaukee 90 degree. I need to figure out how to link these products that I'm using from Home Depot or something. I know some other guys have been doing that. I need to figure that out.
You
But
can copy and paste the URL from that.
yeah. So boom. Pop those out. Good power on this gun. Oh. Gun's too long. Give me a wobble. A wobble. Matter of fact, I got these other wobbles again from HD. They are pretty slick. This one I tried out the other day. I'm gonna try it now. Check this thing out. Check out this wobble. It's just
We will wobble.
yeah. Is that it? Nope, one more. Let's see if the Weeble Wobble can do it. Yeah, ripped it right out, even though all the torque had to go through the wobble. Got a couple push pins. Real nice push pin puller. Oh. Now, it looks like this wire, I can probably unplug this, I think. I don't know what it is. If it don't work, I'll let you guys know not to unplug it. Looks like I gotta get this white thing out of the way first. And I can unplug that, get this out of the way. And then up she goes. And we can see the guts of the truck now. All right, so once you got the battery tray out of the way, you can see that there's a large diameter wire right here looped around going into this main cover. So we can lift that up and we can see a hazard here actually. With this lifted, we can see our main wires and we have this ground just hanging out here above it. All we need to do is go down there and touch those ground and hot, and we'll be causing major damage to our truck. So what I'm going to do is cover the ground up now because these hot wires are going to be right there. So I'm going to cover that up too. All right, so covering up the ground as well as the power because we're in here and this is so close. Like the last thing you need is one of your main feed wires. They're fused. If you pop a fuse, you pop a very large fuse in a weird spot, and that's the last thing you need to be trying to figure out when something's not working on your truck no more, and whatever dealer or whoever's going to be like, well, what did you do? And it's going to get expensive. So, you know, you could unhook all the batteries and stuff, and somewhere there's like a, I don't know. For me, I don't want to lose the memory, and I'm just going to cover this stuff up so that there's no contact between power and ground, which would be called a short to ground. So now that we can see this, I'll show you some other little tricks that I like to do with this. Now, this is going to be controversial because a lot of guys won't take it this far. My personal opinion is with this wire being here, 110 milli, I feel that it's easier. Now, keep in mind, I'm touching metal. This ground wasn't covered. This could arc together, which would be bad, which would be really bad. But in my opinion, I could be wrong. I know it's controversial, but I just got one 10 milli nut right here. You don't need to take this off, but for me to take one nut off, I can lift this one over like this. I can just for now install the one like that, and this thing is now free completely. There's no voltage going through it. The whole system is totally dead because I unhooked the main hot wire. There's another plug too, one simple little plug that you can unhook and really have a lot of room to work and work comfortably and not work. But anyway, I need to actually lift this off of these tabs. There's some buttons here. Can I get one with the hand? Can I get the other one without a... No, instead of me getting a screwdriver, maybe this thing will fit to push in that little tab. Maybe a different finger? Or should I just get the right tool? Nope, index finger worked. Now I've gotten this to this point. Because I've disconnected this, if this were connected, I'd have to fight with this larger diameter wire, twist it, and I mean, it's just personal preference. With me taking it completely off, now I'm working with this thing like this right here. And I've got room to handle it. If I wanted to take it a step further, there's one plug here that I could unhook. That seems a little bit like a lot to do when I got everything right here. So if you wanted to though, even that can be removed. Whenever I tie anything into this, I do prefer to leave it with enough length. As you can see, something's tied in here, and I prefer to leave enough length to be able to work on it again in the future. So when you see this, I've actually tied this wiring to the truck to provide inside of the truck key on 12 volt power fused at 20 amps that you could power whatever you need to power. Our plow is tied into that, so when the key turns on, it powers that, powers the 12 volt, and it also powers our dash. Well, it will power our dash cam here in the future. But as you can see, all of our wiring is right here. There's a color coded pinout right here to tell you the switch that it goes to. Relay number 1 is brown with green. And we just have to find that color in our bundle and tie it in. Okay, so I read the label. We're gonna go with switch number 1. It's gonna be fused for 40 amps. And basically what we do is we go ahead and cut this wire, strip it back, and we can test the circuit. Like I said, I turned the key on. Now this one can be made to work with the key on or off, the first two. But right now it's just key on. What I can do, I can take my test light and I can show you that with the switch on in the truck, we have 12 volt power at this particular spot. Hot, not ground. This is only hot. So we've confirmed that we have 12 volts.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and make our connection to the switch, and we're gonna show you this thing operating. So what we like to use is crimp. These are copper, they're tinned. This is a nice silicone coated 10 gauge wire. As the 12 volts gets carried further, it's nice to have a larger gauge wire to make it easier for the voltage to flow. Here we're going to a thinner wire. This is the wire from Ford. I kind of debated going with 2 switches just to make sure we had enough power. That would be 80 amps of fuse, or fused for 80 amps, 2 40 amp fuses on 2 different switches, but then you'd have to hit 2 switches and all that, where it's, if I just do it this way, then I can just hit the one, and if it blows the fuse, I can adjust things later. But this is going to be protected from Ford. Maybe pushing the limits a little, but what I'm doing is I'm taking the thinner gauge wire, cutting it extra a little bit longer, and then folding it down so it fits into larger butt connector, better. But before I do this, and sometimes we forget, but make sure you get the shrink tube on there first, or else you have to cut it off. So shrink tube, connections. Now I can go ahead with my crimp tool. I run this crimp tool, I believe it's called like Wi-Fi or something from Amazon. We got a number there to tell us that it's going to be a 10 gauge wire. That's what we're wiring here, 10 gauge. And then from there, you just go ahead and grab it, crimp it. One end slipped out, that's perfectly fine, but this makes a perfect crimp every single time. That's not going anywhere. Our shrink tube is in place. Just back in there, or we could also hold it, slip it right into that 10 gauge measurement again, hold that like that, slip this in like so, finish it off. Perfect crimp every time. Now from here we can see it's nice and connected. We've got a couple strands of copper hanging. That's okay. That's because we folded it over. But you can test pull it and you can see that you're not getting that to just pop apart. Now from here we slide this down, cover it up. Marine grade shrink tube. Important to make sure you get marine grade. Pan over to the table, we'll show some of the stuff that's nice to have. This is a Dremel torch, very good torch, had it for years and years and years, keeps on running. Marine grade shrink tube, this company, Wi-Fi or whatever that says, Wi-Fi, they are pretty decent. They're on Amazon, marine grade. This thing from Dremel, go like that, turn it up. You can hear the difference. You can feel a little heat. Don't put it too close to your hand.
Be a good experiment, right?
It'll burn you. So now that you take this, make sure this don't touch anything combustible, and you slide it down. Make sure you're getting the coverage that you want, and you just put the heat underneath it, shrink it down, working your way from the middle. A little too much heat there. If you see it smoking, that's too much, but we'll be all right. Now there's our connection. Now when you glue this down, you can see that on the ends, a little bit of glue starts to come out of the connector, letting you know that it's just sealing everything. Honestly, this shrink tube is pretty good, and if you just twisted these together real good, the copper strands real good, and shrink tubed it, it probably would be just fine, because everything's now glued together as well. Marine grade sealed, so make sure you get a marine grade. Can't stress that enough. A lot of times you end up with a cheaper wiring. So what we're going to do now is demonstrate this working. What I've done is just for, the sake of this video, I want to show you guys the wiring of the upfitter switches finally. This here is connected. We're laying this wire in place. It's going to route down and it's going to go under the truck. And we're just temporarily setting this up so we can test this, just like so. It'll get all covered in convolute and made to look nice, but for the sake of the video, we're going to test this out just to show the function. All right, we're going to turn it on. Remember, this is key on. It can be made to work with the key off with the flip of a switch under that cover. And And yeah, that's showing you that we just wired our Ford upfitter switches, and that's all it is. Now that can be any type of circuit. It can be a light, it could be a, I don't know, you name it. But as long as you match the wire diameters, look online at the amount of voltage that you can carry across a distance on a 12-volt circuit, the fusing for it, and go from there. You know, in our case, we have a much larger diameter wire, a 10 gauge wire going into like maybe like a 12 gauge or something, and we're protected for 40 amps, so we're more than safe on everything. Shaking pretty good. And what's interesting is the way we wired it, it's gonna work the old way as well, or both. You can actually hear a change in tone when both are running. Can you hear that? Definitely helps, huh? Interesting. Got me thinking, you know, I could even beef that up a little bit more and build a different circuit or what, but for all intents and purposes, we've just shown you how to wire the Ford upfitter switches. Do we need to show how to put the battery tray and everything back in? No, I think we're good. I mean, it's all done in reverse order. But if you're gonna try this, protect your... Actually, I need to start the engine. Protect your 12-volt circuits, cover everything up, make sure that you don't short circuit anything, and by leaving those large connections to the battery and things like that unhooked. But anyway, we gotta go. We got a lot of shit to do. So see you in the next video. This is DS Trucks, over and out.